Hello everyone. So the content reveal and patch notes are now out for Path of Exile 2.0.4 after the Druids expansion and Fate of the Vaal League. Kind of both, I guess. And I've been kind of going through them, been simmering on it a bit and trying to figure out what I want to do this league. So I'm going to quickly go over some of my thoughts on the new reveal, my thoughts on what's probably the more controversial change around pack size this league, and then what I'll be doing, which, as the title suggests, is not playing Druid in the Druid League. Now, I am very much a Pro 2 tourist, so a lot of the patch notes just kind of go over my head. I don't really have a frame of reference for a lot of them. I haven't played a lot of hours, so I'm not going to be going deep into the patch notes or anything. There's plenty of people doing that if you do want to hear that kind of content. In saying that, there is some stuff that I am really looking forward to that I want to just kind of have a chat about. So we're going to jump past the Druid stuff for now. I'll come back to that. The Fate of the Vaal League. So this looks really, really good. We're getting to build our own temple, which gives us, I guess, a lot more agency over what actually goes into the temple compared to, I guess, Incursion in Path of Exile 1. We're getting a lot of the typical kind of things from back then as well, though, which makes sense because thematically it is still the Vaal, and it's still kind of Adziri and everything to do with them. The big two things there are Double Corrupt and Gem Corrupt. So the Double Corrupt is going to work slightly differently compared to Pro 1. So you're going to be able to corrupt an item once in the first place, which we can already do, and then this is going to allow us to re-corrupt an item a second time, giving a 50-50 chance of either destroying the item or giving it a second corruption on top. Now 50-50, I guess at glance kind of sounds kind of rough, but it's pretty similar in Pro 1 anyway. In Path of Exile 1, you either delete the item or break the item to a rare, which is 2 of the 4 outcomes, so 50%. And then the other 50 is either you double corrupt it successfully, or kind of nothing happens, or I think you get Y sockets. So it's kind of always been 50-50. We're just getting it a different kind of way now. And I kind of prefer this approach. You corrupt the item first, and if it's good and you want to do the double corrupt, then you can do the double corrupt, instead of having to just straight double corrupt it from the start. Again, Gem Corrupt, so we can now have level 21 base gems, and then all of the plus gem scaling on top of that as well. The Transcendent device is interesting. You think to replace your own arms and legs with Vaal ones, I guess, with different benefits on them. The ones they showed off weren't super powerful, which I think is good because you do lose them on death. So if you had overly powerful limbs that were, I guess, kind of build defining, and then you died and lost them, that would be pretty rough to try and get them back, especially if they're kind of I guess, a core component of the build and you lost them. We're getting similar to Foulborn uniques from the Pro 1 current Breach League, where Vaal uniques in particular, so just the Vaal uniques, you can corrupt with the Cultivation Orb, which will replace one of the modifiers with a different modifier. I think they said typically this is getting rid of downsides and giving them upsides instead. So some of these could end up being quite powerful and make some, I guess, kind of interesting choices. We're going to corrupt tablets now and extract orbs. Augments. So the new name for runes and other consumables that you socket into gear. It does look like you'll be having to run about 5 maps to get 6 rooms to place. So we are still going to have to do plenty of mapping. This isn't fully, I guess, independent of maps. You're going to have to run some maps, do them quickly, and then jump in. And I did say you'd be able to stack them up as well. So hopefully we can do 15, 20 maps in a go. Then have 24 or something rooms to kind of go through and place all at once, so we can kind of do the entire temple in one go instead of having to come back constantly every few maps, which would be quite nice. One of the other changes I'm really glad they're bringing in straight away is all of these options are, I guess you can take all of these crafting as orbs. So instead of having to take your item into the temple to double corrupt it there and then, you can run these without having the gear available. You could just take the item as a crafting orb and then take it back with you to craft in your own time or sell, which is really, really nice. Abyss is going core, which is great. I didn't really play in 0.3, so it's nice to be able to actually get to play with Abyss still. Playing into the core game, I've heard a lot of really good things about Abyss and the crafting, and then it's quite fun and quite powerful, so I'm looking forward to that. The more, I guess, controversial change that they've kind of made, scroll down and find it, it's here. So maps no longer scale pack size as you increase in tier. Well, it used to be, I think it was in 0.2, they made the change that starting from, I guess, base maps and going up to tier 15, pack size would scale up by 40%. They are now removing that and replacing it with effectiveness, which grants monsters up to 40% increased life, experience, and quantity of items to kind of counteract the fact that you're getting less mobs. One important distinction, I think, I've seen a lot of people really mad at this change and saying that, 40% increased quant won't make up 40% less pack size. But we're not technically getting 40% less pack size. It's closer to around 29% less because we're not going from 100 down to 60. We're going from 140 back down to 100. And overall, I think this is a net positive for the game for a couple of reasons. One, I'm actually expecting loot might be a little bit more common. A lot of the loot comes from rare monsters, and we're not losing any rare monsters with this. We're not reducing the number of packs in maps. They're simply reducing the amount of scaling that happens to those packs. So we're still going to have the same number of rare monsters, is my understanding, and giving 40% increased quantity of items to all those rare monsters is quite nice. And we're not increasing the difficulty of them either. It's purely the life. So they're not going to be doing more damage to you. They're just going to take a bit longer to die. Now this might make the maps feel a little empty, and that is something that I guess that has remained to be seen, and is probably going to be the biggest downside of this. Other than that, I think for the long-term health of the game, this is a really, really good choice to make, and it enables a lot more build variety. Currently, like in Po 1, you have to scale into clear because we have so much density in the maps that if you don't spec into clear, it kind of feels bad to play. And with Po 2, they kind of have the ability to, I guess, kind of counteract that early on while they're still going through the access, they're still making these changes. And you kind of, with less density, you make it a bit easier for builds that don't quite lean into clear as much to be able to still have a good time with maps. The only other downside, I guess, to this is that you do, I guess, coincidentally and unfortunately kind of hurt some, I guess, chance-based or like proccing abilities. So one is the Witch Hunter's Zealous Inquisition, which has a 10% chance for enemies to explode on death. With less monsters in the map, you have less times to roll that 10%. So it is effectively a nerf to things like that, which is kind of unfortunate. But hopefully it's not too bad for, I guess, for anyone that uses those sorts of things. Now back over onto Druid. I think Druid overall looks really, really interesting. I think the concepts are great. The wolf and the bear are, I guess, kind of what we were expecting. I think what we'd seen before. And then the wyvern was kind of completely out of left field. I really, really wasn't expecting this. There's a few reasons I'm not going to play Druid. One thing that I guess remains to be seen, whether it's good or bad, or even what I'm thinking at all, which is it very much looks like they've shoehorned each of the 3 transformations into a specific damage archetype. All the wolf ones really, they seem to be shoehorning into ice, bear into fire, and wyvern into lightning. I'd like to see this open up a bit more, and it might be opened up a bit more, and it might just be the way they're kind of showcasing things, but I don't really want to be shoehorned into a specific element with these shapeshifting forms. I'd rather see them be a bit more open, allow you to kind of choose a wyvern that can do cold or fire instead of just lightning, or maybe even allowing you to push into chaos, poison, or fizz, kind of give you that freedom that Po always kind of has, and kind of let you do what you want. It's also a bit disappointing that we didn't see a shapeshifting focused ascendancy for the Druid. We've got Shaman and Oracle, which both look really, really interesting in their own ways, but I would have liked to see one that was focused a bit more on that shapeshifting aspect. It is nice that the shapeshifting is just a weapon, and that it seems to be that other classes can utilize them and can shapeshift. So I've seen a lot of people talking about doing like a Thorns Bear Titan, so kind of opening up the ability for different kind of archetypes from classes all over in different parts of the tree, which will be really cool. Saying that, the kind of hybrid playstyle that they've been kind of focusing on, and you can see it in the bear one a bit as well, where you cast a spell, then you shapeshift into the bear, and then you go into melee and kind of interact with those spells. It's not really a playstyle that I personally enjoy, or I kind of enjoy testing out either. So I'm going to be doing something a bit different. I'm going to let everyone else that wants to kind of play around with the Druid, figure out how it works, find all the fun, fancy things. And I'm sure there will be something that I will enjoy and I will see, and I will probably play Druid a bit later on in the league. What will I be doing? So I was going to go Hollow Palm Monk. Monk was the first class I played in Po 2 back in 0.1, and I had a really, really great time going through the campaign completely blind. I think Monk's always been kind of my favorite concept of the classes that they showed, and I do really enjoy it. And I wanted to go Hollow Palm, but they have kind of nerfed the attack speed on that on the top end quite significantly. So I was having a look around, and the other build style that I have enjoyed in Po 2 was crossbows. So I'm going to go back to crossbows this league. I'm going to try out Witch Hunter, which I haven't done before. I think last time I did crossbows was in 0.2, and it was with Deadeye. So I'm going to start as a grenade mercenary. I'm going to be following GuyThatDies Mobiletics guide, which I'll link below, along with his video. If you want to know more about, I guess, completing the campaign fast, or how grenade crossbows work efficiently in the campaign, definitely suggest giving that video a watch. There's him and someone else who I can't remember the name of, apologies. They kind of commentate on effectively a speed run as GuyThatDies speed runs the campaign. And it's really fascinating. You kind of can learn quite a lot about that. Once I'm through the campaign, I'm not entirely sure what the build's going to look like. I'm not going to stay on grenades forever. I do want to look at, if possible, getting the lead working. Bleed's an archetype that I've always quite liked in Path of Exile 1 and 2. So I'm going to see if I can make it work. There is a lot of bleed nodes in the southern part of the tree by the mercenary kind of start and the crossbow nodes, so should hopefully be able to make it work. But if not, grenades will hold for a while. They can kind of carry me while I make mistakes and figure things out. Overall, I'm kind of just going to take the league at my own pace. I'm not going to rush through it as fast as I tend to rush through kind of Pro 1 leagues. I enjoy taking the game a little bit slower. Just trying to treat Pro 2 as its own distinct game instead of being, I guess, an extension of Path of Exile 1. So overall, I am very excited for this league. There's a lot I haven't done in Po 2 yet. I've got a lot of stuff to try out, and it looks like GGG have put in a lot of effort and delivered quite a lot of content this league. So yeah, good on them, and I'm very excited. So I think that about covers it. So I'll catch you next time.